You're talking about farther back than Grandma. You're talking about.
I want you to talk to me about everything you know about Grandpa's family, because you said you don't know that much about it. How many kids? How many siblings did he have?
There was Pop.
He was the oldest.
No, I don't know who's the I don't know who's the oldest. Lawrence, Jude, Gladys, Pally. Pally. Palestine was her name. They called her Pally.
Well, wasn't there a Bill?
Hmm?
Wasn't there a Bill? Bob.
Bob.
Uncle Bob.
Yeah, Uncle Bob's the one was had the.
Yeah, I remember Uncle Bob. I'll never forget Uncle Bob. That picture that hung up in their house.
They don't remember. She doesn't.
Oh, wonder who has that picture.
I don't know. That's what I was gonna say. I wonder who has that picture. It's a picture. He was just staring right at the camera. Anywhere you went in the room, it looked like he was staring.
His eyes followed you.
It was about the size of that picture.
It was haunted. We got to find out who has that picture.
I don't know. I don't have any idea.
I figured you had it.
No. I don't know whether they got rid of it, just threw it away. I don't know what happened to it.
No, wasn't Uncle Lawrence a hobo?
Well, he was sort of, yeah. And he played the harmonica.
Yeah.
And they lived in Indiana all the time, and he'd come in here on vacations and stay, visit with Uncle Jude and Paul.
Which one stuttered?
Uncle Lawrence.
Is that Uncle Lawrence?
Mm-hmm.
Jude or June?
Jude.
Like Hey Jude.
Yep.
Okay. And then Bob was the one that he was only about 21 when he died. They were working at one of the sawmills in Richwood, and they went out to lunch, and they said he just took a drink of water and fell over.
That's the one that had the picture, Uncle Bob.
Mm-hmm.
He was dead.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, he died. I think he said he was about 21 when he died.
So whatever possessed them to hang that big picture of him up in that bedroom?
If they had it, they didn't have any place else to put it, I reckon.
Well, would you suggest something better? In the living room?
Yeah. I mean, it was a huge picture of him.
It was the size of that picture right there.
Bigger than that, maybe. I don't know.
It probably was about that size. You're just little, so you thought it was bigger. And then Aunt Gladys, we knew Aunt Gladys. I never knew Pally. She married Homer.
Well, I remember that name, but I don't remember her at all.
I don't either.
But her name was Palestine.
Yeah, Palestine is Pally. They call her Pally. And Aunt Gladys, we visited.
Yeah, Aunt Gladys is the one that we knew.
Yeah.
Is that was there only two girls? Pallas and Gladys?
Esty.
What was her real name? What was her real name?
And Esty.
Esty? E-S-T-I-E?
E-S-T-A.
Esta. What was Hannigan's real name?
She married Ira Simmons.
Yes.
They told us this.
What was Hannigan's real name?
Quincy Green.
Quincy Green. Yeah.
And the only person that I ever heard him called that was Ray Wagner, Aunt Avy's husband, and Clarence Greenleaf.
They had some weird names in that family. Think of that. Quincy and Palestine and Esta and
Esty. I have a friend from church who had twin girls, and she named one Blanche, and she named the other one Esty. E-S-T.
Now see, Ori has a sister. Ori Kirkpatrick has a sister, Blanche. Roxy's.
Yes, right.
But this was E-S-T-A, right?
E-S-T-A.
And they called her Esty.
A little bit like Colleen's.
Essie.
Yeah.
It's not able. Her name wasn't. It may have been Esther, and they just called her Esty. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they spelled it E-S-T-A.
It could have even been Esther.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I said. It could have been Esther, and they just. And Aunt Gladys, Papa always called her Gladys.
Well, I never could understand that because it's definitely Gladys, and we always called her Aunt Gladys. But it's spelled just like Gladys. And I never understood why we ever called her Aunt Glacy.
But she had, her husband worked in the clothespin factory at Richwood. It was real famous back then for making clothespins. That's where we got all of our clothespins.
Exactly.
Aunt Gladys would bring a clothespin.
The seconds weren't any good.
So Aunt Gladys was Hannigan's sister. I think I barely remember her.
Is that the one we went to visit one time in
Pennsylvania or
in Richwood or something?
Yeah,
Well, that was Daddy's sister, uncle and aunt and uncle.
Okay.
She lived in Richwood. Gladys and Aunt Gladys lived in Richwood.
Yeah, but Ed's aunt and uncle lived there too.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But they had that clothespin factory then, and that's where we got all of our clothespins, because she'd bring us the calls, so.
So Aunt Gladys would come see you guys.
Not very often.
Well, they come about once a year, about every year.
Oh, did they really? I didn't remember them coming that
Yeah,
often.
I think they came about every year for 2 or 3 days. And Uncle Miller never came. I don't remember him ever coming. But Aunt Gladys and Junior came.
Yeah, I remember them coming. Yeah.
And they had kids.
Junior was sort of a sissy.
He was her wife, her husband. Aunt Gladys' husband was Junior. Junior was a cousin. Okay, one of your cousins.
Her son, and he did finally marry. He married a.
It was a long time. He was very late when he married.
Yeah, and they got a divorce before he died.
Is that right? I didn't remember that part.
They have one daughter, I believe. I think Junior had one daughter.
What was her last name?
Starcher.
Starcher. Starcher.
So how many cousins did you know from that side of the family?
Junior. Madge Butcher was Uncle Jude's girl. I don't know, you remember Madge?
Madge was his wife, wasn't it? Madge was Uncle Jude's wife?
No. Madge was Uncle Jude's wife. Merle Butcher. Merle was Uncle Jude's girl.
Merle was Uncle Jude's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought Madge, it was Jude and Madge.
Yeah, Aunt Madge, yeah.
And Merle was their daughter.
Merle was the daughter.
Weird names.
And they had then Judy. They called him Judy. I don't know. I suppose his name was Jude. They called him Judy.
So they called their son Judy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And their daughter Merle.
And
I don't remember them at all.
Well, do you remember Ronald Butcher? That's Merle's son. Ronald Richard.
Ronald
Butcher. Was
he the superintendent of schools?
Mm-mm.
No.
No. Not that one. They weren't that smart.
Well, I would have been surprised, because he was there was a Ronald.
That was Roland.
That
Butcher.
was Roland. Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well,
only ones that had Chloe.
I don't think Chloe was ever an aunt. She was a cousin, wasn't she?
She was Uncle Jude's daughter.
She's Chloe Jones.
Chloe Jones. She married Dayton.
Yeah, because when I graduated from high school and went to Weston, I stayed with Chloe Jones for a while until I got a place to stay.
So that would have been your cousin.
That would have been my cousin.
Yeah. Your first
cousin.
On
your dad's side.
On your dad's side.
And that's about the only cousin. Chloe and Junior are about the only cousins I remember. I don't remember these Uncle Jude's kids at all.
I remember Merle and Chloe and Junior. I'm trying to think. Seems like it was another one.
I mean, why did you stay with Chloe? Did you know her very well?
Well,
they always came to visit.
Chloe and Dayton would stop and visit at our house a lot. They were more well-to-do. They lived in Weston, had good jobs, and so they would come back out to Gilmer County to visit, and they would stop at our house quite often.
Yeah.
So when I wanted to move to Weston, that was in preparation for my wedding. I think I was going to be we were going to get an apartment out there. I can't remember all the details, but I think it had something to do. Well, I got a job out there. I got a secretary job out there. That's what I went out there and got a job after I went to the year of college. I got a job with a lawyer. I was a secretary to Mr. Holy in Weston.
Oh, okay.
And so I was looking. That's what it was. And so I was looking for a place to stay. And so Close told my mom that I could stay with them. I don't remember how long I stayed there, but
I don't think you must have not stayed there very long.
No, I don't think I was. I don't think I was there more than a month or two or something like that.
And then where did you go?
Then I got married.
And then you kept working for that place.
I did. We lived there, and I kept working for that place until we decided we were going to come to Ohio.
But you lived in Weston?
And then 365 Mid Avenue.
It was an apartment?
Yes. Yeah, in Weston. We got married in October and came to Ohio in December.
And Dad had just graduated from high school.
Mm-hmm.
But you were a year ahead of Dad.
Right. But where does Aunt Esty come into our family?
Aunt Esty, Pop's sister.
Oh, she's the one married Iris Simmons.
Iris Simmons, yeah.
And I do remember some Simmons names, but I can't recall them now.
Virginia.
That would have been our cousin, and I don't know her, but I know the name.
Creed Simmons.
Yeah. And I have to tell you one thing that I remember when I was a little kid, and Uncle Lawrence would come to visit us. He's the hobo, and he never knew when he's going to come, and he stuttered. And us kids had never heard anybody stutter before. And they would stand there on those steps, and we'd go hide in the bush so we could hear him stutter, and then we'd start giggling, and then Pop would just get so mad at us because he knew we were back there giggling because this guy's stuttering.
And he played the French harp, harmonica, and you could hear it. He would play it as he walked along. He'd play the French harp.
Now, we don't know nearly as much about my dad's side of the family as we do our mom's, because the Heckerts all lived right at those kids didn't move away.
They had a reunion every year too.
Yes, that was the big thing.
Tell me what you knew about Hannigan's growing up. What did you know? Where did they live?
They lived over on not Sinking Creek, but they lived across the hill from the Heckerts.
So he was born over there.
Yeah, and he would walk across the hill to court Mom.
Oh, okay.
And whenever the clock struck 9 o'clock, Grandma Hecker would tell her, "Grace, it's bedtime." And he'd have to leave. And then she would set the clock back. I've heard her tell that she'd run the clock back so the clock.
He'd leave early.
No, to stay longer.
Oh, to stay longer. Grace would set the clock back.
Yeah. So he could stay longer, and Grandma, till she heard the clock strike 9,
I figured
it
as
wasn't
much.
time for him to go home. And that's the clock that Virgil wanted so bad.
That Rick has.
Yeah.
So what kind of life did they have growing up? So Hannigan and Grace grew up across. Knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
They knew each other all their life, basically.
But I don't know anything about Pop's early life, but my mom had her mom came across the ocean to be here. So
she was 18 when she came. Grandma Hecker was Mom's mom was 18 when she came from England.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know that.
And
I have no idea where Pop's people came from.
I don't know.
They
were just. I suppose they evidently were immigrants from somewhere, but Germany or somewhere. I don't know where they came from for sure.
But Grace and Hannigan lived right across the street, right across the hollow from each other growing up.
Yeah, you go up one hill and down another, and you'd be there probably.
Which probably was pretty common then. You married the people close to you.
They had gatherings, like a neighborhood gathering. What they call them? It wasn't like Thanksgiving, but it was sort of like Thanksgiving, and the whole neighborhood would come. I have pictures in there of a whole bunch of people there.
It's just everybody in the community.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Mom would talk about who they were going to marry, and all those stupid hear the whistle of the train, or putting the eggs on. And so we heard a little bit about her life when she was dating Pop, but it was usually just a bunch of girls together trying to figure out who they're going to marry.
But Grandma Grandma Eunice was a fortune teller.
Grandma Eunice was
Grandma Eunice Heckert.
was
Dale's mom's dad. His mother was a fortune teller.
Huh.
Supposedly.
You go to her to find out what was going on.
Oh.
No wonder we're so crazy, huh?
So were they pretty poor growing up?
I suppose just like everybody else. They lived off the farm. I mean, they didn't have any. There was no work around other than timbering maybe or something like that.
Well.
And they just lived off the. They grew just like we did. We grew everything we ate except flour and sugar and that kind of stuff.
But Pop did have
WPA. He worked for
WPA
that's what saved our family.
And the CCCA or what?
WPA.
And there's the other one. He was involved with the CCA, CCC camp.
That's Lake.
That was Lake.
That was Lake. Pop worked for the WPA. We piddle around. That's what everybody calls it. But it was a government job back during Depression, and that's all that saved our family. He worked for that. And other than that, I don't know what we would have done.
Well, Virgil and I were talking here a while back. Something about Pop working at. He would go away, be gone all week to some job. I can't remember. I was almost.
Well, they lived in Richwood for a while when Lake and Lucille were little. They lived in Richwood.
Well,
he worked in the timber up there.
Yeah, it was a timber job that Virgil was talking about. I don't know where it was, but because he had some questions about Pop's.
Well, I think that was in Richwood. Back when they were younger.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know, but I know they lived in Richwood when Lake and Lucille were little.
So I guess I didn't realize they lived in Richwood at all.
Yeah, they lived in Richwood when Lake and Lucille were little.
Is that where Lake and Lucille were born?
No, I don't think they were born there. I think they were just there, moved there after they were born.
So they must not have been there very long.
No, I don't think they were there very long.
How much education did they have?
5th grade.
Both of them?
It was 6th grade. I didn't know whether they... 5th grade.
Both of them dropped out after 5th grade?
Oh, that's all they went.
That's all they had?
That's all they had.
What would you do after 5th grade? You're only... How old are you in 5th grade, Sonia?
10, 11, 10.
What do you do after that?
You farm and grow the food that you're going to eat during the winter.
Yeah.
You're out in the fields just like everybody else.
Wow.
If you pick up... Somebody wants to hire you to help them on the farm or something, you help them. Virgil and Dean and them helped out on the farm.
Yeah, but they still went to high school. They went to high school.
Yeah, they went to high school.
I'm just saying, what do you do with a whole house full of children after 10 that are not going to school every day?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think maybe to you or to Virgil, somebody the other day. Back then, we were satisfied to sit down and play a stupid game or make up a game.
You didn't have everything.
And we didn't sit with these things in our hands all the time. And your generation can hardly imagine what it would be like without these. But we can, because even in our growing up, we were still.
You'd take a spool and notch it on the side and make a rubber band around it and put a matchstick in there and wind it up and race it across the floor to see.
Right. Yeah.
You made your own games.
But that was good. You did that during the summer and in the evenings. But can you imagine from age 10 on not going to school at all and just sitting, being home?
Well, they didn't sit. They worked.
Yeah.
They worked
at 10, they became laborers, basically, right?
But you're going back one generation from us.
Yes.
I see what you're saying.
I'm saying, what did Grace do with her life?
Yeah.
After age 10?
What'd she do with all those kids? Because she kept having kids.
I know. So Grace's sisters and brothers were all home too.
Yeah.
There must have been a house full of children that became laborers all year round because they weren't in school after their age 10.
Well, that was the generation with my mom and dad, but that wasn't the generation
I thought they
with
went
us.
to 8th grade. I didn't know they just went to 5th grade.
That's what Mom always told me, that they.
I thought they just went, I don't know, I'm not saying
I'm
they
not
didn't.
sure about it either. I'm just.
not saying they didn't, but I was thinking they had, cause remember Uncle Coy taught school.
Mhm.
So he evidently went more than 5th grade.
Mhm. Well, I would imagine it would be just like today. There'd be people that have the money to send their kids all the way to the doctor's degree, and there's people who have to drop out when they get to be 10 years old or whatever. It would be an economic.
Well, see, the Amish today only go to the 8th grade.
And then they become laborers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm
or
thinking.
They go for apprentice to somebody.
I'm trying to figure out what Grace's childhood was like.
Yeah.
So if she went to school till she was 10, and then what did she do after age 10?
She helped take care of the kids with the young girls.
She learned to make bread and everything else that needed to be done around the house. Yeah. And
they were kids. They were 3 or 4 kids younger than her. So she probably, just like the older kids took care of us when, I mean, she had so many kids. The older ones took care of the younger ones.
Yeah.
And kept them occupied.
I see what you're trying to get at. What kind of a life they had when they were teenagers and and before.
I mean, they were working hard by the time they were 12, right?
I would think so.
They were working like adults.
Yeah.
Out every day doing chores and working on the farm and.
Yeah, because everybody that I know in my back.
You had milking to do. You had the horses to feed. You had the barns to clean out.
The chickens to feed.
The chicken coops to clean out.
And the milk to be separated.
Yeah.
And butter to be made.
And water to haul in. You didn't have you had to draw water from the well. You didn't have.
And in the summertime, you went and picked berries so that you could have berries in the wintertime. And so there's a lot to do when you don't have a store to run to and get everything. So.
Well, remember those letters that I wrote?
I know.
That Mom was telling what they went to the store, like they had maybe $7 for a week or something, you know.
And when you read through those letters, the amount of work she did every day. I mean,
one meal right after another.
Just always, up till 10 o'clock at night doing stuff.
Can you imagine doing gallons and gallons of berries and not having running water?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, would be Rubel. Wilma went. I remember Wilma going berry picking when she lived there. Everybody down to probably you went berry picking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know wwhether you went or not. I never did. I was too young to go.
I remember going out and picking
the boys,
bucketfuls of berries.
All the teenage boys went out and picked 2.5 gallon bucket full of berries or more. They'd put them on a stick and put them across their shoulders and bring all those berries home. Well, she'd be up till
midnight.
More than that, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Can of berries.
Because she learned that when she was a teenager, that you have to work if you're going to have anything. So I've often looked back and saw, I don't know how she ever did it. I give out way earlier than she ever did.
But gallons and gallons, and she never canned. Of course, but back then she had to can everything in half gallons, and the cellar would be full of stuff. I mean, and bushels and bushels of potatoes in the fall.
Great big bins of things.
So what kind of berries? Blackberries mostly.
Blackberries.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember. Do you remember doing any other kind of berry?
That's
only blackberries.
Blackberries. But boy, there's nothing better than coming home from school on a cold winter's day, and all we had for supper was hot blackberry cobbler.
That's the first time I remember eating the blackberry cobbler where you pour milk and sugar over it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the best thing ever.
That was supper many, many times.
And that's why she canned the berries, and then she didn't have time in the summer to make the jelly or jam, so she opened up the berries and
make the jam
in the wintertime.
And it wouldn't always be making the jam. She'd just thicken up the berries and make a cobbler out of it.
It's hard for me to realize now. She was at Sinking Creek. We went to school before daylight of the morning. Pop and them went to work. She was there all day long by herself, and all till after dark in the evening, because we didn't get back home till dark. All day long she was there by herself. all day long.
Where was Hannigan? He didn't go to work.
He was working in the timber, and he would go away. He would go back out to work all day long.
He would, so he would go off and work. Did he make money doing that then?
Yeah. Well, he sold timber too. They cut timber, and so he sold some timber.
He'd work for different neighbors.
She was there. She was there all day long by herself, all day long.
She probably enjoyed it after having 13 kids.
Maybe so.
Finally some time to myself.
But we would leave before daylight in the morning to go when we were going to school. And,
well, I hope she got some rest. You can think if she's been working like that since she was 10 years old, that was probably the first time she could sit down and put her feet up.
She probably didn't then.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Cause I think she probably did the milking after we went to school. I think she probably milked after she went to do the milking most of the time.
How many cows would you have?
Maybe 3. I'm not sure. I used to milk.
3 cows would be enough milk and butter for your family.
We may have had more than that. I can't remember for sure. But I used to milk. You never did milk a cow.
I never did milk. I tried, but I couldn't learn. I didn't want to learn.
Yeah, that's called learned helplessness.
Put too much effort into it, did you?
I remember trying, but I never did get good at it. Well, I was born after 3 boys and before 2 more boys, so I was needed in the kitchen. My sister Wilma and Juanita had a lot more outside experience than I ever had. I never had to go out and I went and picked berries and helped in certain chores, but outside was not my thing. And then Mom, she loved to be out and playing in the dirt, and she'd rather have me go peel the potatoes and cook supper than she couldn't go out and be in the garden. She loved being out and playing in the garden. And I didn't care for it, so I like cooking. So worked out pretty good.
So you got to milk the cows.
I milked.
Then what? So she bring in these big pails of milk, and then what would you do with them?
Later on, we separated it. You had to separate it and sold cream.
Otherwise, we just stored it in the cellar.
Cheese. Remember making cheese? Hang them in a bag, and she'd hang them on the clothesline and let them drip, and then make the cheese, cook the cheese.
But mostly you drank that milk just like it was right from the cow.
Yeah. No pasteurized.
No. What did it taste like? Do you remember?
I used to drink warm milk. I used to always have to have when they came in. When I was little, I remember drinking warm milk.
Did you like the milk?
I did. I've always liked milk. I still drink. Virgil drinks a lot more than I do, but I still drink quite a bit of milk.
That's probably what made you guys so healthy, getting all that healthy milk from those cows.
And none of the preserves.
Right.
All that fresh from the garden.
I never had a bottle of pop in my life. Well, I take that back. I had 2. When I had CAT scan, I had to drink one for the.
That doesn't really count. That's like medicine.
Yeah, it was. But that's the only 2 cans of pop I ever had.
So, do you like milk?
I like milk. Milk doesn't agree with me much anymore. I don't drink very much milk. So.
Would you make butter out of the milk?
Oh yeah.
Butter.
You let the milk go off of cream to the top, and then you skim the cream off, and use that to make butter.
Churn the butter.
You don't put milk in the butter. You use all the cream. You set the jars and the big crocks of milk in the salad to let it get cold.
Then you drank the buttermilk.
Yeah.
And we had bread and buttermilk for supper.
What made buttermilk?
Making butter, then that would turn the milk into that heavy
buttermilk.
Buttermilk.
But if you kept going, it would turn it into butter.
Well, the part of it that's cream turns into butter, but what isn't cream turns into buttermilk.
Oh.
And so after
and then we had cornbread buttermilk for supper.
Okay, so you bring in a pan of milk, you let it sit, the cream part rises, you take the cream off, some of that becomes butter, and the rest of it becomes buttermilk.
The bottom clavers, and you churn it.
You put the cream in another container, and you collect it, and you collect it, and you collect it until you have enough to make butter. And the milk, then,
what's left from the butter is buttermilk.
You churn it and churn it, churn it, and the butter comes to the top.
Churn it.
Either way, one way or...
Lucille had the one you cranked this way. We had the one you churned.
Yeah. and then you got that butter out and took care of stirring it up and mixing it up, and what was left in the churn became our buttermilk, and we put it in containers and used it for buttermilk.
That's what we'd have for supper a lot of evenings, was cornbread and buttermilk. Couldn't you see setting kids down to cornbread and buttermilk now?
It'd be called abuse. It would be called abuse.
Yeah.
Probably so.
Food insecurity.
Yeah. Quite different.
Well, we can gallons and gallons of stuff in the summertime.
Oh.
I mean, everything. I mean, apples and peaches and
Corn and peas.
all the
everything.
vegetables, corn and peas and
Everything.
tomatoes and
So
green.
back to all the milk. It would just set down in the cellar. That would be cold enough.
The cellars were very unusual as I look back on them, because they were cold. It was the milk.
Well insulated.
And when we killed hogs, we would put all that meat in the cellar and put grease over it, and we wouldn't even can it. It would be something that we used all winter. And that's the part that really surprises me. How could we do that?
Well, that grease would seal it back in and make it seal it up. She would fry the sausage down till it was done, and then put it in these big stone jars, and then pour the grease over top of it, and that would seal it. And then when you wanted the sausage, you just go out and pull the grease back, take out what you wanted, then put the grease back over top of it. And she did tenderloin the same way, fry down the tenderloin, and go out and get it.
You were eating cooked meat for 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, that's been sitting in the cellar with no refrigeration.
It was already cooked.
Can you imagine eating something that's been cooked for 8 months without it being frozen?
Well, it was sealed up.
Just like this being like canned. It's canned by
it's just
using
like being canned.
Yeah. Now I don't remember ever hanging a ham up like you hear about that. Did we do that?
Yeah, we had a smokehouse that put everything in.
Okay.
Remember the crib out by the.
I remember that crib, but I don't remember it being a smokehouse.
I remember I wonder how many rats and stuff crawled over our.
Well, we're still here today, so it must not have been too bad for us.
I guess it's our version, Sue, of how they drank coffee and people smoked cigarettes, and we rode around in cars and
no car
seats and just a basket or something.
Right.
Yeah, this is their version of that. We survived that, so.
Hygiene wasn't on the top of the order, right?
Oh, we had baths every Saturday night.
Yeah.
And it depended on how old you were, what order you got in after somebody else had a bath.
In a number 3 wash tub.
You all took the same water?
We'd change, I think, after 2 or 3, but there would be at least 2 or 3 people have a bath before you got clean water.
Oh.
You always got the short end of the stick then, didn't you? You said you probably always got the
short end of the stick.
You never got a clean tub of water.
She always got the short end of the stick, as Colleen always said.
So did you wash your hair then, once a week?
Wash the hair in the sink.
You could wash your hair in the sink more often than
Well,
that.
I don't know. I guess you just heat the water and pour it over, because till we moved on Sinking Creek, after we had been there a while, we didn't have running water. Well, we had cold running water.
But not heat.
Not hot water.
Yeah.
So you just heat the water and wet your hair down and soap it up and
pour the water over.
And that means, I mean soap, I don't mean shampoo.
We didn't know what shampoo.
Ivory soap. That's the only kind of soap we ever had was ivory.
Yeah, ivory soap, it floats.
Mm-hmm.
We could always find it.
Yeah, and all that water, the dirty water, you'd need the soap to float.
we had a reservoir up on the bank. It wasn't covered up. We got the water from. We'd go up in the spring and clean it out. We might find 2 or 3 dead rabbits in there.
And nobody died from anything like that?
That's the amazing
We're tough.
thing.
We're tough.
Tough as a pine nut.
We worry about food that's expired for 2 days.
Yeah.
My kids come through my refrigerator all the time throwing stuff out. This is expired.
Well, your kids are the worst ones. They come to my house and do that.
Oh.
They can come to your house. That's their home. But they come to my house, and if they pick up the mustard and they look at
they
the
never
that needs to go in the garbage.
They never eat anything unless they check expiration dates.
Well, how much food do you waste at? Because a lot of stuff.
I don't. Well, this is the good news. They don't come visit me very often. So they don't get to throw it out very often.
They surely don't use that much stuff before it would expire.
Yeah, they do. I don't know.
Unless they buy just small containers or something.
No, they don't. I don't know how they do it.
Well, we never knew what an expiration date was when we were growing up.
Our canned stuff never expired because there's never a date on it.
Well, I'm sure with 13 kids, it went faster than the expiration date would go anyway.
Yeah.
Although I remember going in Grandma's cellar and seeing
it's just full.
It was always full, and so that stuff was 2 or 3 years old.
Well, you never dated anything back then.
Right.
Now
we
put a date on it, but she never put a date on the lid or anything. So.
I remember when she passed away, we divided up the canned goods in her cellar.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
I remember people taking home the different canned goods. I think we took home some blackberries.
I didn't know that. Oh.
She still had canned goods in that cellar.
Yeah,
I know when Ed and I were first married, I think I canned about 500 quarts of stuff that summer that we were married.
Just for you two?
For his mom.
Oh, for his mom.
And us.
Well, I look back now that I've lived 90 years and raised kids and grandkids come and great grandkids. I think I realize more than ever what a woman she was and how she managed things that I could never manage. But she always was happy. I remember growing up
until Don died.
Yes, until Don died, and she never sang.
She quit singing after Don died.
And but
I never heard her.
That's why I know so many songs, because I can sing, because Mom sang songs all the time. She's always singing songs.
She never sang after Don died.
Yeah. That's what Virgil said. I guess I didn't realize that until Virgil was telling me that she never sang after Don died.
And Ed's mom used to hum all the time when she worked, till after his dad died.
Who's that?
Ed's mom.
Oh, is that
always
right?
hummed all the time when she worked. But after Ed's dad died, she never hummed anymore.
Well, Floyd was like that. She used to sing at our reunions and everything.
No, she doesn't want to.
And she said she couldn't sing after Levi died. So. Yeah, it's getting about time we need to be getting our act together here, huh?
Get your fancy peach pie.
I know. Dig it out of that crazy refrigerator of yours.
Let's see, yeah, we gotta take our stuff